Welcome to another week, another show of Hawkeyed with me, Dave O'Hara. Momentarily, you'll see our buddy Sean Bock joining us on the screen. Sean, of course, with 24/7 Sports, CBS Sports, Iowa Hawkeyes beat writer, does a great job. Also covers recruiting. So much to discuss with Sean today. Going to do two segments with Sean. First segment talking Hawkeye football, of course, coming off the bye week, going into the Maryland game, and then, of course, we will talk with Sean about Iowa Hawkeye men's basketball. Besides Stratton, the transfer from Colorado State, who I agree with you did admirably well, at least just getting chucked in there, the fourth, fifth teamer at the start of the season, the fifth teamer, walk on, as you mentioned, and played relatively well against UCLA at the end of the game. Sullivan out long term, it looks like, as you mentioned, and also McNamara slower to get back than expected. So then where do the Hawks go from there? Are we talking Wildcat potentially if something happened to Stratton, if McNamara can't go? Give me a scenario there. I don't want to paint a negative picture here, but just to mix things up too, and because of necessity, they may have to go to Wildcat formation. There's a few guys you mentioned to me off camera. Let's bring that on camera, please, Sean.
Yeah, there are some high school quarterbacks on the roster who weren't necessarily, quarterbacks at Iowa, or recruited to play quarterback at Iowa. One of them is Max White, who was led Cedar Rapids Kennedy to the Dome, the Unidome. I believe it was his junior or senior season, one of the two. And he was a high school quarterback, obviously running back at Iowa, walked on. He's the guy who's been getting scout team reps there. Kyler Girardi, North Scott product, who came in as a safety at Iowa, defensive back role. He was originally committed to play quarterback at North Dakota State, or was going to go there as an athlete. Iowa was able to flip him as a walk-on to get him to play safety with the Hawkeyes, and those are two guys. If Stratton goes down and if McNamara is ended up not able to play, those are two guys to look out for potentially more kind of RPO type. I mean, they show that they could throw the football, but they're not playing quarterback at this level for a reason. They're more athletes, and Iowa's going to try and do some RPOs with them and certain things. I don't see Kirk trying to get the ball in the air much if those guys are a quarterback, especially that's a big jump. Like, I think they're capable of doing it, but they're not quarterbacks at Iowa for a reason. So that would be the situation. If Iowa were to go that route, from what I've been told a couple of weeks ago, that's kind of where things are at. But, the hope is that at least Cade, even if you start Stratton, you get Cade back for depth purposes. But I think, if Cade's healthy and is able to go, they're going to start Cade over Stratton because, the experience factor and just the fact that Cade is, Stratton had a good performance against UCLA, what he needs to do given the circumstances. But Cade is, that guy for a reason, and or has at least been the starting quarterback for a reason, despite all the struggles. So yeah, it's kind of weird to talk about because it's just such a sloppy and messy situation. But that's what happens in college football. And we talked all season, all off season about Iowa feeling like they have more depth in that quarterback room, and they do, but all of them have gotten hurt, and it's like you can't expect really anyone to feel good when they have to go to their fourth or fifth backup quarterback. And that's the situation or the cards that Iowa has been dealt.
Maybe it's good that the Hawks rely on the run so much, Sean, in this case. And so let's move on then from quarterback position and take a look at is Christian with Addison Ostrenga, also with Luke Lachey, Vander Zee, and then we'll go to the defensive side of the ball and talk about Jay Higgins. Again, we're doing all this without the benefit of the Tuesday presser as we record this. I keep repeating this. We record this on Monday afternoon, November 18th. All this may be fodder by the time we know what's going on after the presser tomorrow, press availability, and depth chart updates and that type of thing. But on those four specifically, Ostrenga, Lachey, Vander Zee, and Higgins, let's talk about those guys before we move on to talk about Maryland, please, Sean.
Yeah, I'm looking at the depth chart right now. They came out with the depth chart earlier today. They don't have Reese Vander Zee listed on there at one of the starting wide receiver spots, but they do have Addison Ostrenga listed on there. So that's a really positive, thing on the depth chart. I mean, obviously, Zach Ortworth has done a pretty good job for Iowa in that, role where he's had to take over the last couple of weeks along with Johnny Pascuzzi. But, Luke Lachey and Addison Ostrenga, I didn't even mention Lachey earlier. But Luke Lachey is back there on the depth chart. Him and Ostrenga are listed as the 1 and 2 starting tight ends for the Hawkeyes. So that's a really good boost. On the defensive side of the ball, Jay Higgins is listed as the starting Mike linebacker going into the game against Maryland. That's a really big boost because I felt like Iowa's defense they kind of struggled the entire game against UCLA, but I really felt like things kind of went down a little bit more when Higgins went out with that hamstring injury. And I heard from a couple people earlier this week that, he's going to be good to go. And, assuming that the depth chart is correct, then that's where, Iowa's going to be good with having Higgins at the mic. But Maryland leads the Big Ten in passing attempts, and Edwards Jr. threw the ball 55 times against Rutgers. Like, that's a lot. Like, this is
Yeah.
potentially a very long game if that's the case, considering what we're used to. But, Iowa's secondary is really going to have to be ready for that because, Maryland, that's kind of the one thing that they've been good at offensively this season. And, that's kind of been their identity. And other ways, like, they just haven't been able to put together complete drives. Like, when the passing game is good, it's good, but they don't really have that balance. And, that's something I think we didn't really expect UCLA to have a couple weeks ago, was having that balance. But, Maryland's kind of in that same level a little bit. So, Iowa's gonna still have to be ready for that with the secondary because we know what the secondary, their struggles this season. I think having Higgins back, despite, him not being the secondary, but still kind of that leader of the defense and beat at the linebacker position, and kind of the captain of this defense, having him back is gonna be a good boost for them.
The important thing there, Sean, too, as you mentioned, besides Billy Edwards Jr., a quarterback, Felton out of the wide receiver, their leading receiver, and then Hemby out of the backfield, tough. But they come off a loss, Maryland does, to Rutgers. Rutgers now bowl eligible. Rutgers beat them 31-17 in Maryland on last Saturday. Hawks, of course, had to bye. Hawks now 4-3 in the Big Ten, 6-4 overall. Lot to play for, Sean. An 8-4 regular season. They can win out over Maryland and Nebraska. Nebraska's going to be hungry playing Wisconsin and Iowa the next 2 weeks to try to become bowl eligible. So again, Hawks 4-3 in the Big Ten, 6-4 overall. Maryland 1-6 in the Big Ten, and 4-6 overall. So not, I don't want to say a formidable opponent. Any road game, and with what the Hawks going on with injuries, this is less of a walk away than a lot of people initially thought, Sean. Again, 11 o'clock a.m. Saturday morning on Big Ten Network kick. Good luck to the Hawks from that, and thank you for your insights as always, Sean. So let's close here on this first segment, talking Hawkeye football. Then we'll come back in the second segment with Sean. We'll talk Hawkeye men's basketball. You ready to roll for our next segment, Sean?
Of course, I'm ready.
Look forward to it. Hey, thanks again for doing this. Double duty today with Sean Bock, 24/7 Sports, CBS Sports, Hawkeye beat writer, and also Hawkeye recruiting expert as well. So we got time. We always talk to Sean about recruiting as well. So for Sean Bock, I'm Dave O'Hara. We'll be back with more Hawkeye in just a few moments.
Hawkeyed is brought to you by Better Edge, your ultimate social betting marketplace. With no VIG, you're bound to win more on every bet on Better Edge. Founded by Hawkeye alum James Siles and proud Iowan Greg Kajewski, Better Edge delivers an unmatched betting experience. Plus, what's not to love when they're committed to supporting charities and children's hospitals near you? Join the action now. Sign up at betteredge.com/Hawkeyed and get $10 to start winning more today. Better Edge, where your social betting means your bets go further and you win more.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Momentarily, you'll see our buddy Sean Bock, who was kind enough to rejoin us for segment 2 here. Sean talked football with us, Hawkeye football in the first segment. Now we're going to talk Hawkeye men's basketball. Before I bring Sean back on screen, let me tell you, the Hawkeye women 4-0 now. Big victory yesterday against Drake in Des Moines as we record this on Monday afternoon, November 18th. Due to scheduling conflicts, we're not recording on our usual Tuesday afternoon, but Monday afternoon, November 18th. Of course, Hawkeye men 4-0 after a big weekend victory on Friday night in the Quad Cities against Washington State. Big victory, 76-66. We're going to talk to Sean specifically about that and moving forward with Hawkeye men's basketball. But Hawkeye women's soccer on into the final 32 in women's soccer NCAA, playing in LA Friday against Georgetown University. That should be some fun, so good luck to them. And then Hawkeye men's and women's wrestling just keep rolling on in these early season duels and tourneys. Both of them very successful and rocking and rolling at or near the top of the national rankings. So good luck and continued success to them. So Sean, a lot going on in Hawkeye land. We'll mention one thing. You're a recruiting expert, and you and I can talk about this another time in women's basketball recruiting. We'll talk men's basketball recruiting down the road as well with you when we have more time. But Madden Greenway, Chad Greenway, legendary Hawkeye linebacker, Minnesota Vikings, former Minnesota Vikings linebacker. His daughter, Madden Greenway, what an athlete, Sean. State title this year in soccer, state title in track, state title in basketball. She picks Kentucky over Duke and Iowa. And so she joining Kenny Brooks, who used to be at Virginia Tech, now building something at Kentucky. So Madden Greenway, now a Kentucky Wildcat. It will be next year. So not with the Hawkeyes, but Hawkeye women have great recruits coming in as well. When you and I have more time, we'll get more into that. So, Sean, let's talk Hawkeye men's basketball. Big doings 4-0. Again, as we record this on Monday afternoon, November 18th, they play tomorrow night at Carver Hawkeye Arena against Ryder. And then Friday night, always the pre-Thanksgiving tournament of the NABC Hall of Fame Classic in Kansas City. I used to go to that for years and years when I was down there working at Fox Sports Radio in Kansas City, play Utah State. And then before we record again next Tuesday, they have a game upcoming against USC, University of South Carolina Upstate. We'll talk about that next week. But 2 games upcoming, Sean. Let's talk about what just happened with Washington State, Hawkeye men's basketball, but also what's to come this week. So I'm going to let you fire away when ready. And again, thanks for staying over for a second segment, Sean.
Yeah, of course, Dave. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And yeah, that win over Washington State was crucial. That was one that Iowa needed to have. And I think a lot of people looked at kind of the metrics in the KenPom rankings and said, oh, this is a game that Iowa should win by double digits. And obviously, they won by double digits, but it was not a double digit win. It didn't feel like that at all. Washington State, I mean, obviously going to the WCC this year, they won't have the, chances to improve that resume as much, considering they used to be in the Pac-12, but they'll get to play teams like Gonzaga and St. Mary's a couple times a year. So that was still a really crucial win for the Hawkeyes because, obviously it wasn't a home game, but it was on a neutral site floor. Washington State, their offense, they shot a lot of threes, but they didn't make a lot of threes. But they have the type of kind of guys that could really frustrate Iowa on both ends of the floor. And it was one of those games too where Iowa didn't have the best offensive game that they usually have, or, they didn't shoot the ball as well as they need to. But it was a game where you saw a lot of other guys step up. Obviously, Peyton Sanford and Owen Freeman were the top 2 scorers for Iowa, but Josh Dix had 2 points and only attempted 2 shots, I think. And only his only points came from the free throw line. So it was good to see, other guys like Seydou Traore, continue to prove his worth since he was coming back. Drew Thelwell was really good. Brock Harding had some really good moments, albeit, still kind of struggling with the turnovers here and there. But Price Sanford, I think, hit a big 3 off the bench. And Drew Thelwell obviously had those 2 threes, late in the game too, to kind of, shift the momentum back in Iowa's favor. And I thought it was just a really, good, just overall battle for this team because we've seen this team kind of win, shooting the 3, kind of spacing the floor, hitting those shots, kind of doing that stuff. But this was a win where they really had to grind it out. They weren't, hitting everything from 3. I think they were 8 of 25 from 3 in the win. Washington State was out rebounding them. Washington State also, had a pretty decent lead in the first half. I think they were kind of close to double digits, getting that lead in the first half and, could have really shut the door there. But Iowa was able to come back and, kind of stay in the game and, eventually get that lead at the end. And, I thought the defensive effort was really good too. I thought perimeter defense was solid. There's still some kind of issues missing with the defense. And, that's kind of going to always be a trend with Fran McCaffrey's teams, I feel like. But, I felt like kind of just the effort of this group and kind of just the, mental toughness was a lot better because we've seen this Iowa team, fold in those situations. I mean, there were a number of games last year where, they had the lead down the stretch or they were in a good position to win the game. But, they have these scoring droughts or, the defense really kind of flusters and, things don't go their way. And this was one of those games where they could have easily just folded because Washington State, it felt like for every answer Iowa had, Washington State had another one. And, it wasn't until the end of the game where, Iowa was able to get that last push to, really push themselves over the edge. And, the thing that I think is a little bit of a concerning trend early in the year is the turnovers. They've been ranked in the top 10 in turnover percentage on offense the last couple of years. Been a really good team at taking care of the basketball. Right now, they're in the hundreds. I think they rank 131st or something as of Monday. And, that's something that they really need to clean up. That's going to be, if Iowa wants to maximize possessions, yes, they've been shooting the 3 better, but haven't really been as efficient in transition compared to the last couple of years. And that's, kind of their bread and butter, playing fast. And, if they can kind of trim down the turnovers a little bit offensively, that's going to be, really big for them because, if they can shoot the ball as well as they have, in most of the games that they played, this offense could be really good because remember last year, where did Iowa basically get all their points? Mid-range or,
Right.
around the basket. This year, they're getting points from 3. They're getting points around the basket. Then again, that's another topic of conversation too. Owen Freeman still trying to get comfortable, I think, a little bit down low. He kind of looks like he's a little slower, not finishing as well as he did last season. I think he was in the 95th percentile in points per possession at the rim. This year, he's in the 67th percentile. So, I mean, it's 4 games, but it's a pretty noticeable drop off, and you're going to need that to really, increase because, you don't have, I guess, the depth at the 5 or, that kind of production down low that you have outside of Owen Freeman. They do. Traore is capable, I think so. Ladji Dembele, that's really not his game right now. I think, Seydou can do it, but remember, Seydou's like 6'7". Like he's not 6'10", 6'11" like Owen Freeman.
Right.
So, you got to be able to get, I think, more inside. And I think Iowa did a decent job of doing that against Washington State because the threes weren't falling as much. So, with Dix too, I think, it's like I said, he's got to play Iron Man minutes. And, I think by the end of the year, he has a real chance of being Iowa's leading scorer over Stanford right now. Not that it really matters, but, and another thing too is like, the depth. You mentioned Cooper Koch earlier. To see him, not only hit a 3, but he's coming up with hustle plays. He's making, getting long rebounds. He's defending, trying to take charges. Like all that stuff matters. And, if he, a lot of people I think thought of him as just kind of a one, trick pony. Like he's going to come in and shoot threes. I think if people, kind of didn't really mention, okay, he's going to shoot threes, but he's also going to draw defenses out, and that's going to open things up for Freeman. He's going to cut, he's going to screen, he's going to do that stuff off the ball to get his guys open, and that's going to end up getting him open. But also, like I said, defensively and offensively, like he's making these hustle plays. He's getting on the glass. He's just making these plays that I think are necessary. And, for him to be a part of that rotation to add, another element with Bryce Sanford out there too, that bench could really play a big role for Iowa this year, especially those 2 guys.
Multi-platform analysis. Our good buddy Sean Bock talking football, the first segment, Hawkeye football, and now Hawkeye men's basketball. Sean, great stuff from you as always. Again, Sean is a fantastic Hawkeye beat writer for 27 Sports and CBS Sports. And again, you see all of Sean's information, all his handiwork can be linked at the bottom of the screen throughout these segments, along with mine and our other guests. But Sean, it's always great to see you. Hopefully we can talk recruiting more next time. You're the recruiting expert there as well. So look forward to always catching up with you. And thank you for doing double duty today and talking football and basketball with us. We'll catch up with you soon, Sean. It'll be interesting to see how Hawkeye men's basketball moves forward from here and Hawkeye football. So thanks again, Sean. Good to see you.
Yeah, Dave, thank you for having me. Yeah, Fridays can be fun. Should be a fun weekend for Iowa fans. A lot of entertaining games, I think.
Indeed. And thanks for adjusting your schedule. We're recording a day early, as we mentioned throughout, on Monday, November 18th, not our usual after the Hawkeye media availability on Tuesday. So thanks again to Sean for that. So for Sean Bock, I'm Dave O'Hara. We'll be back with more to close out the show in our sports betting segment with our good buddy Scott Pritchard, Scotty P, professional sports bettor in Vegas, Northeast Iowa native. Can't wait for that as usual. So for Sean Bock, I'm Dave O'Hara. We'll be back with more Hawkeye in just a few moments.
Farming comes with a lot of frustrations, but the number one conversation you don't want to have is when your local seedsman says, "I'm sorry, we don't have that hybrid that you early ordered and paid for." Hi, this is Joe Mershman from Mershman Seeds. We do business a little different. We call it the Mershman Seeds no substitution or it's free guarantee. If we do not deliver the hybrid that you ordered, the substitution will be free. Contact your local Mershman Seeds dealer today and we'd be happy to increase your corn yield with our best hybrids. From Mershman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Always pleased to have this guy join us, and thank you to him in advance for adjusting his schedule. Momentarily, you'll see Scott Pritchard joining us on the screen. 11 o'clock kick on the Big Ten Network this upcoming Saturday. Hawks at Maryland. With Scotty P, they're playing a quarterback, potentially starting a quarterback that started the season off as the 5th stringer in Jackson Stratton, who closed the UCLA game out 2 weeks ago. Cade McNamara may not be coming back as quickly as Hawk fans had anticipated. For sure, Brendan Sullivan, his ankle injury is far worse than anticipated, so he's out for probably the rest of the regular season. Marco Lainez out with injury for the rest of the regular season. Your number 3 quarterback, Scotty, count him with me here now. And number 4 before that was James Rezar, who was moved to wide receiver but has since injured as well and now out for the year. So now rumor has it if something happens to Jackson Stratton and Cade McNamara can't go, it may be the wildcat for the Hawkeyes, Scotty P. What is happening to this betting line, and how do you discern all this information as a professional sports bettor, Scotty P?
When in doubt, don't bet it. The line, look-ahead line was 2.5. It's been bet up to 6.5. Iowa favored on the road at Maryland, 9 o'clock Las Vegas time on Saturday. The total was 45. It's been bet up to as high as 47, but it's 46 everywhere right now. And again, I've always said that less is more. It's not how many you bet, it's how many you win. Pick your spot your picks. So the key here is it's very, very interesting, but the line is counterintuitive to the information that you're sharing. And you might be out in front of it. You may not. It could all just be hearsay. Don't know. But I do know I am not betting the game until I do know. And then once I do know, and do we ever really know anything for sure? I don't know. I need verification before I'm going to step out and bet the kind of money that I bet.
See, that's what I like to hear from you, because a lot of people say, "Oh, I heard this," and again, this could all be fodder by tomorrow, but this is inside. These are inside sources. We don't know how the body heals. Young guys. I agree with you. I would stay away from this game. But this brings another point you talked to us about weeks ago, Scotty P, about when do you jump in and make the bet? Do you jump in early in the week? Do you jump in late in the week? Do you wait to see where the market moves? This is a prime example of that again, because all information is bad information, Scott, like you said, until it's confirmed good information. So we won't know until we know.
Great input on your end. Keep in mind, the odds makers, for all intent and purpose, Dave, they have the same information that you do. It's just a matter of if you can get some inside information, or if you can get out in front of it, and you tie that in with an informational advantage, with a competitive number, and you have an opinion, step up, bet it. Once you see across the board, across the screen, that it's starting to move and move significantly. That's why ultimately you want to have as many different outs as possible so you can get down and pounce when the opportunity is there.
The Punks King, Scotty P, there he is. So, Scott, I'd like to ask you one more question in reference to how to bet, when to bet. You do seminars, a fantastic course at Pritchard Wins via social media, pritchardspicks.com. Check out Scotty P's fantastic Let's Bet show he does every week as well. Luminaries in the sports betting world, Scotty P has on that show. Great job he does. But again, that sterling winning percentage Scotty P has. And I want to ask you a direct question as opposed to funneling from the viewers. This is my own edification this week, Scotty P. I'm always curious on your selection process, to your point of less is more, pick your spots, spot your picks, that type of thing. With all that's going on in the sports world, Scotty P, not just with the NFL, college football. Now we've got men's and women's college basketball. Our friends at Circa do a betting line for college wrestling. Maybe women's college wrestling upcoming. All these things coming at us. We have the Annika, the special golf tournament this weekend that Caitlin Clark played a round in the Celebrity Pro-Am on Wednesday, but then, of course, Nelly Korda doing Nelly Korda things and wins that one. So we've still got golf going on. Scotty P, you had the Tyson and Jake Paul fight this last weekend, Mike Tyson. You had the Bones Jones in MMA with Jones beating Stipe. So all this going on, how do you discern and say, I'm only going NFL this week, I'm only going college, or does something have to leap off the page to you? How do you pick and choose, Scotty P?
I'm open to anything and everything. They play the Star Spangled Banner every day, and there are opportunities to bet each and every day. So there's never a need from a professional standpoint to panic or chase or feel like you're going to run out of games or options to bet. I was just on the Fox and McKenzie 97.1 FM radio show here a week ago, the day before the Tyson-Jake Paul fight. They asked me who my money was on, and I said, listen, all you need to know is every single professional sports bettor that I know is on Paul, and every square, sucker, amateur is on Tyson. People were living in the past with Tyson, and I'm telling you this after the fact, but I told everyone on radio and TV, the interviews I did a week ago, the same thing I'm telling you now, but I also prefaced it by saying I did not bet because I didn't want to lay the juice, minus 230. It closed 275, but the wise guys, the sharps, once again, were 110% correct. The sharps won, the betting public, generally the amateurs, lost. And another thing is I let the betting market come to me. I really look at anything and everything. I look at the opening number, I look at where the number is today, and more importantly, where do I see the value? Where do I see the line moving from here? CLV, closing line value, critically important. And to your other point, I generally bet early. The NFL market, about 90+% of the people who bet on NFL football, Dave, they bet Sunday morning. Well, that line has been steered into submission. That line has been shopped by every wise guy, every sharp, every unfair advantage player on the planet. So if you wake up on Sunday and you want to bet the game because it's on TV, on your local TV station, you're fighting a losing battle. It's a very, very efficient market. So I bet early, I bet late, but oftentimes if I'm buying late, I'm buying back an overinflated number.
Thank you so much and continued success, my friend.
I love the show. Thanks for having me, Dave.
Truly my pleasure. Love what you're doing as well, Scotty P. So for our good friend Scott Pritchard, I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeye. Thanks also to Sean Bock and my production partners, Greg Kajewski and James Stiles at BetterEdge and BetterEdge.com. And thanks, of course, to you, the viewers, as always. So for Hawkeye, I'm Dave O'Hara. That's all from me. Thanks to all of you.